Science and Math Society. So we are running this event, Teach Me How to Bloomix. So IBM's having a hackathon this coming weekend, showcasing their new Bloomix platform. So I figured I'd give you guys a quick demo of what it's all about and how you can get a quick start to get ahead in the game. So first of all, let's go over what it is. So essentially, it's a cloud platform which allows you to build, manage, and run mobile as well as web applications. So essentially, you can think of it as a platform as a service. So essentially, they're giving you a way to deploy and manage your apps, such as the backend, the database, et cetera, et cetera. So it's built on top of Cloud Foundry. Cloud Foundry is an open source project that lets you basically deploy to the platform as a service. And it works really great for all the integrations you can do. So what can you do with Bluemix? So in short, you can develop, build, deploy, and manage cloud-based web and mobile applications. So what can you integrate with it? Well, pretty much everything. Like, your imagination's really the limit. I haven't really found a limitation of Bluemix yet. If you think you can do it, then you probably can. So they come with a bunch of built-in services, such as IBM's Watson, which has some really cool things such as natural language processing, concept expansion, text-to-speech and vice versa, visual recognition, a lot of really cool things like that. You can use some external services such as push notifications, Twilio, analytics, a ton of databases, gamification, SendGrid, Twitter, RouteMQ, WordPress. So there's really no limit to the services that you can use with it. It's pretty cool that way. So a lot of people really wonder how you can do this. So by default, Bluemix comes with a couple environment languages. So this is essentially what your server runs on. So there's Java, Node, Go, PHP, Python, Ruby on Rails, and Ruby Sinatra. So those are just the default ones. You can also run your own, such as Apache. I'll actually go into later how you can do that with one of our demonstrations. So Bluemix comes with some version control. You can use Git or Jazz SCM. As we'll see later, Jazz is like their Jazz Hub, which is essentially IBM's version of GitHub. I prefer using Git, and we'll go over that way because I know it. I don't really know Jazz SCM, so I can't really show you guys the proper way to use it. So in terms of how you can edit your text, you can use the built-in web IDE. So, if you don't have a powerful laptop or aren't comfortable with setting up your own environment, Bluemix does provide you with a way to edit your code right from the website. There's an Eclipse plugin you can download. I heard it's pretty good integration with Eclipse, so definitely check that out if that's your thing. Or you can use your favorite editor, whether it's Vim, Sublime Text, etc. There's really no limit to how you can edit your code. So how you can deploy your apps is you can use the Bluemix web interface. You can directly integrate it with Git or GitHub using webhooks. You can use the Cloud Foundry command line interface, which, by the way, is phenomenal. That's the way I've been using it. And then you can also deploy directly from Eclipse if you have the plugin. So that's the end of the slides. I didn't want to bore you with a bunch of slides. I want to show you directly how to use it. So at the end of the slides, we have a link here, which points to the Computer Science and Math Society's GitHub. So on there, I've created a bunch of tutorials as well as gathered links. If you want to contribute and submit a pull request, we'd be happy to add it because it's just going to help other people out. So we'll exit the slideshow and go there first. So when you go to that link, you'll see it's github.com/smoothcsm/teachmehowtobluemix. So when you go there, you'll come to this GitHub repo. And then if you scroll down, you can view a quick overview. We have tutorials as well as links. So we'll start off by checking out the links. So I've organized them into different categories. So the first thing you're going to want to do is download and set up Cloud Foundry. It's my favorite way to use Bluemix. It's very good. And then there's custom build packs. We'll actually get to using one of those in one of the demos later. They have some really cool documentation. I think that's where we'll actually start with because the documentation is pretty much how you're going to use it. So yeah, and then there's examples, tutorials, and npm packages, but you can check that out later on your own time. And then back in the main directory of the repository, we also have tutorials. We'll actually we'll start with the Cloud Foundry one. So for this one, you want to download the command line interface. And then after you download that from your terminal, you want to do cf API and then set it to the Bluemix Bluemix API API URL right there. And then from there, you log into the terminal, log into Bluemix through the Cloud Foundry command line interface. So you say in -u for username, your email address, -o for organization, your email address is the default, and then -s for the space. And the default one it makes you is called dev. So just doing this command will get you set up. So a lot of people don't actually have a laptop or are comfortable with a Unix environment. So it's definitely better in a Unix environment, whether you're using Linux or Mac. So one thing I recommend is this website called nitrous.io, and they have a full Unix environment you can use right from the web. It's actually pretty decent. So rather than have everyone get set up with Node.js and stuff like that to do the demos, just check out this website and it'll help you get set up a lot quicker. So you can sign up, username, email, password, or you can just log in with GitHub, Google, or LinkedIn rather than making another account. I'll just sign in. I've already done it with GitHub myself. So once you're signed in, you'll see this green button changes to Open Dashboard. And then you'll be able to create a new box. For the terms of the demo, we're using the Node.js template. It'll give you a random name. You can randomize it some more if you want. We're using US East as we'd like a closer and faster connection. And then click Create Box. I already have a box though, so we're just going to start that one up. So once you get here, click on IDE, and that'll bring up their web interface. So from here, the first thing you're going to want to do is go to Auto Parts, Manage Packages, and then search for Cloud Foundry. And then this button where it says Uninstall will be installed for you. It takes a few seconds, and then you have the Cloud Foundry interface. So the first command we're going to run is this cf API one. So I'll just copy that, paste it in here. Now we can see it sets the API endpoint there. So whenever we use Cloud Foundry login or Cloud Foundry push, it's going to default to there. So I'll just log in here. cf login -u email O for the organization, which is your email again. And then -s for your space, dev by default. And from there, you're going to input your IBM Bluemix password. Give it a second to authenticate. So we can see it's using the Bluemix endpoint. There's my user, organization, dev. So now Cloud Foundry is all set up for me to push and deploy to. So I guess before that, you'll really want to check out the Bluemix website. So the website is console.ng.bluemix.net. And from here, you'll be able to sign up and then or log in. So once you sign up, then you can do the Cloud Foundry stuff. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that first. So I'll just sign in here. So when you register, you get a 30-day free trial. And then from the free trial, you can keep using it. And as long as you're of the stuff, otherwise you have to pay. And it's pretty much it's going to be. You can just close that. So here, but I'm just going to delete it, and we can start fresh. So when you come to Bluemix, you're going to see this like the dashboard's the default, and then right up here is your notifications. If anything pops up, you can click that and see them, clear them out. So you'll see the organization right here is my email, and then the default space is dev. So you can see I have no Cloud Foundry apps, no services running, no containers, and no virtual machines. So if you scroll down at the start, it'll say, like, default, you come with 2 gigs of memory. I have 0 apps running and none of my 10 services running. Scroll down a bit, you can create an application, you can create a service, and then there's containers and virtual machines. But right now, these are closed beta, so you're not going to be able to get them. You can click on it. It's going to ask you to submit your email, and then when they consider you ready, they'll send you an email saying that you can use it. So right now, I wouldn't worry about containers or virtual machines. So let's just go over the web interface and how to use that. Let's create an app. So we're going to build a web app. And from here, you can use a bunch of different environments. So this is what I was talking about in the slideshow. So there's Java, Node, Go, PHP, Python, Ruby, and Ruby Sinatra. You can push code already. You can browse the boilerplates they have or bring your own build pack. So we'll do that later on, but let's just create a Node.js application just for now. So once you click on one of these, you'll see right along here, you can view the docs or view the details about that environment. So those are pretty handy links to getting there. So once you select one, we chose Node.js, we'll click continue. You have to give it an app name, so it has to be a unique app name. We'll do teach me how to Bloomix. I don't think anyone else will have that. And then you can also use custom domain names. I've tried to set up with my website, but haven't been able to get to work yet. If you have one, that's great. If you get it to work, let me know. I'd be interested to see. So click finish. So what it's doing right now is it's setting up the server environment for Node.js. So as we can see, it says your application is starting. So it gives you 3 options right from the start here. You can use the Eclipse tools for Bluemix, which gives you an overview of how to do that. Cloud Foundry command line interface, link to the CLI, download this quick overview of how to push and deploy it, or you can use Git. So the one thing with Git is you can still use Git with Cloud Foundry, or you can use the built-in Git into Bluemix. So when you go the Git route, it'll actually push it to JazzHub, which is IBM's version of GitHub. And then it'll also allow you to populate the repository with the starter application. So you can get that from going to the CF and download the starter code. But I'll just demo the Git thing, the Git way to do it here. So you go to Overview on the left, and then we can see the routes here. So this is our default application. If we click that, here's our default app. Pretty boring at the moment. So if we go back to the Bluemix interface, in the top right, we can click Add Git. So when you add Git this way, it actually allows you to use the web interface to code, whereas if you did the Cloud Foundry way, you aren't able to use the web interface. So whatever you're most comfortable with is what I recommend. So we'll see here, the populate the repository with the starter application package. So that's checked by default. So we'll just do that just to show the web interface for editing the code. So it takes a minute or so to get this ready. It's basically setting up Git, setting up JazzHub, setting up the web IDE, and then setting up with the default code for the Node.js boilerplate. Okay, so the Git repository has been created, so we can close that. Now we can see that the app is still running. We can still click on that, and it'll take us to the default app. So as we can see, the Git URL is hub.jazz.net. So that is essentially your Jazz Hub. One thing I will note is when you go to create your first application, it's going to ask you for an alias when you click Add Git. as you can see, mine is test R0R. It asks you for an alias. It's not very clear what the alias is. So essentially, it's your profile on JazzHub. So when it asks you for an alias, pick a name that you'd actually want to use. You're not able to change this. Okay, so now that we have that, we can click Edit Code because we've added Git, and we can see it opens JazzHub, which is, like I said, their version of GitHub, as well as the code editor. So it takes another minute to load this. Sometimes it's a little slow with the web interface, which is why I definitely recommend using your own development environment and getting that set up, as well as using the Cloud Foundry interface. I think once you get over the learning curve, which is pretty minimal, you'll have a much better time developing. But again, if you don't have your own laptop or not really keen on setting up Nitrous IO, then this is definitely an option for you. So normally it doesn't take this long, so I'll just reload the page and see if that fixes it. Yeah, it did. So we can see all the applications I have on JazzHub there initially. I'm not sure why it showed that. So anyways, this is their version of GitHub. It shows your readme.markdown file, which is the default in the root directory. And when we scroll down, we can see the entire directory as well as on the left. So if we go into app.js, this is our Node.js app. So we can see it's running an Express server, and it has all these default settings. So if you're comfortable with Node and Express, then you'll feel right at home here modifying your application. So from here, let's just go to the views and edit it. So it uses Jade by default as the template engine. It's just a way to minimize the HTML you have to write. So we'll just do a minimal change. And from here, we will save this. So the file is now saved. So then this little play button right here will let you deploy the application again. So it says it'll be redeployed. So as we can see, this is kind of the status of it. Still deploying. And then some of the other buttons right here is you can stop the application. So like if it was broken or something, you need to stop it. Or if you want to open the URL, so that's the same as on the Bluemix website. You can open the logs, so if you're having any issues, you can try and debug it there. And then you can open the application dashboard, which I'm pretty sure is this screen right here. So as we can see, it's the same across both. We can see the application is staging, which is essentially getting ready to be fully deployed. So from JazzHub, while it's deploying, we can continue to do other things. Oh, we see it's running now. So we can click play here to view it, or sorry, not play to view it, this little box with an arrow to open it, or right from the Bluemix interface. So now we can see our changes are live. So this is pretty basic, but if you know how to build a Node.js or HTML application, then you'll feel right at home. So from JazzHub, you can also track and plan, which essentially lets you make their version of GitHub issues. It's more focused towards sprint and agile methodologies. So if you want to do that, feel free. If you want to use GitHub, you're still definitely able to do that. So I'll just go over a bit more about JazzHub. Is the dashboard here will take you to your Bluemix dashboard. And then My Projects will take you to a list of all your projects within JazzHub. So we can see I have a couple there. And then you can go to Explore. So Explore is pretty cool, where you can see all the activity, editors pick, what's popular. So if we go into editors pick, there's some pretty cool ones like sentiment analysis app. So this one uses the Twitter service that basically analyzes specific keywords. So from here, it gives you an example of how to deploy this yourself, but you can also see the demo version, which is running right here. So by default, it's analyzing Justin Bieber. It shows how many tweets it's analyzed and then shows a little smiley face that changes based on how people feel about it. So if we put something in there like Harper, it should be a pretty negative smiley face. It does take a while to analyze the tweets, but it does live update. So we'll just give that a minute. So as you can see, the 12 tweets that it's analyzed about Harper has been pretty happy. So that's just a cool little sample app that you can view. So I closed out Jazz Hub. We're gonna stop using Jazz Hub for a while and get to some of our tutorials. So if we go back to tutorials, the next one we're gonna do is Blue Chatter. So Blue Chatter is another example app, but I thought it was really nice and used the command line interface, which was a good way to demo it. So the first one we're going to do is this command, which is Cloud Foundry create service, Redis Cloud. It's going to use 25 megabytes of RAM by default, and then it'll give a name to the service. So we'll go back to Nitrous. I'm just going to demo from here for anyone who wants to follow along this way. It's going to be the same from your own terminal if you are on Mac or Linux, and then Windows, you're on your own, I'm sorry. So we'll create that service. So if we go back to the Bluemix dashboard, go right to the main dashboard. We could also add a service here. I didn't go over this now, so while it's creating it, I can show you. So it has all the Watson APIs, all the mobile, DevOps, web and application. So like Redis is right here. And then there's a bunch of databases you can do. So that's pretty sweet because whether you want a SQL or no SQL database, they definitely support that. And then here's the Twitter analytics, which that other app was using. So I'm not going to get too into that, but again, it's the same thing. You click View More. It'll show the price of it if it's applicable. You can select an app to link it to, name the service, and then view the documentation. And then up in the top left is how you get out of that. So if we go back here, the Redis Chatter service was fully created. So we'll do the next step, which is to clone this repository, change directory to wherever you want to clone it to first. So from here, I'm going to do it into Workspace. As you can see, we get a default Workspace folder. So we'll git, I put that in the whole command. So git clone, and then this Blue Chatter application. So it's a pretty small app, so it doesn't take very long to clone it. So we'll cd into it. You can also view it from right here, and then you can edit all of it from within Nitrous, which is pretty good. So once you change directory into there, we're going to push it with Cloud Foundry. Again, you need a unique app name, otherwise it's going to fail. So we'll call this one Teach Me How to Chatter. So when you run that command, it's I'll just make this a bit bigger. It's very important that you make sure your current directory is the root directory for the application you're pushing. If you're up one, it's going to push the entire contents, which could cause some pretty unintended results. So this will just take a minute to deploy here. And if we go into the dashboard, we should be able to see it. So right now it's staging. So I'm pretty sure another command we can do is cf logs. CF logs, then the name of the application. So we called this one Teach Me How to Chatter. Oh, it's not logs, it's logs. So I haven't been able to get this working. It just says it's tailing the logs. I'm not really sure where to, whether it's saving it to the Bluemix interface. But this was a pretty small app, so we can see now it gets to the part where it's starting the instance of the app. Now our app is started. So it'll show the health of it. So it's using 128 megabytes on one instance, and then here's the URL. So if we just copy that and go to that website, we can see that we have an application working. So this app basically uses Redis to let you do a chat service. So if anyone else was watching right now, you'd be able to join in and it would live update for everyone, whether it's mobile or not. So I think this is a pretty good application demo because it gives you some pretty good starter code. So if we went back to the Bluemix interface, we can see the Teach Me How to Chatter is there. We can see it's using the Node.js environment, and it's automatically linked to our Redis chatter service. If you remember, we made this chatter service from the command line interface. So I'll show you guys one other thing that uses a command line interface here. Is if, say your application started to get big and you had a bunch of people using it, you'd want to scale it to more instances so it didn't seem like the app was running slow for people. So we can do that right from the Bluemix interface. So if we went here, clicked on it, we can open the cloud dashboard and then navigate to that and scale it. Or we can do it with this command right here. So what this command is cf scale, and then you got to pick your app name. So as you remember, it was Teach Me How to Chatter, and then -i for number of instances, and then 5 to set that. As we saw up above, once it was finished, it was instances 1 of 1. So this didn't take a whole lot of time. It's done already. So if we go to the Bluemix dashboard, we can see we're using quite a bit more memory. And now when we click on it, we can see we have 5 instances, and we got that notification that it was running now. So now that application's running, so that's pretty sweet. Now, if we had a bunch of users on this application, it wouldn't seem to lag for them because we have more instances handling the server requests. Okay, so from here, I just want to show one final thing, and that is creating an app with a custom build pack. So if we remember, we went back to a society repository here. In the links, we have custom build packs. So the built-in ones are Java, Ruby, Node. We saw all that. But then there's a bunch of community-created ones. So if you had some other way to build a web app that you were familiar with, but it wasn't really properly set up with Bluemix yet, then you can use a custom build pack. I personally really like Ember, so as I found, there's a custom build one here, or a custom one here. So we're going to show a demo with that. And this demo is a bit more involved, so like if you don't fully understand what's happening, don't feel bad. I just hope I can show you like build an app the way you know how to, and then use Bluemix to deploy it. So I'm going to delete our existing apps just because the app that I'm going to deploy might go over the 1 gigabyte I have remaining, and we don't really want that. Delete both of those. And then I will note, whenever you delete an app that has a service connected, it'll automatically delete that service, just to keep note of that. So I'm going to build this app completely from Nitrous. So I'm just going to go back to the workspace. I'll remove the Blue Chatter app. do that with sudo so I don't have to type yes for everything. I guess I will. So essentially what this is saying is it's just asking to delete all the Git stuff, but Nitrous is pretty good that I can just do this right from the interface rather than the command line to save myself some hassle. Okay, so now we have an empty workspace again. So we're going to go back to the tutorials in the Society repository here. And we're going to do this Ember CLI. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to use Ember with its command line interface and create a web application that uses GitHub authentication. So what I really hope to show you with this app is that it's pretty easy to use an existing tool that you already know, whether it's Ember, Angular, Backbone, Express, etc., and then just using Bluemix to host and deploy it. So the prerequisites are Bower and Ember CLI. With our Nitrous box, we did the Node.js one by default, so we have Node, Git, and NPM already. So what we're going to do is we're going to do Ember new, and we'll call it teach me how to authenticate. So essentially what this is doing is it's telling the Ember CLI to create an application, and it'll set up a Git repository for us by default. So if we want to host that on GitHub or wherever else, we're definitely welcome to do that, and then use Cloud Foundry to push it. From here, there's one fix we have to do because they recently updated Ember CLI. It kind of broke a few things, but they've fixed the changes, so we just have to say that we're going to use the latest version of Ember CLI. So that'll just save us some hassle once this is done. So one thing with the Nitrous interface is this button just lets you full screen your console, or the same for the text editor as well. So this demo might take a bit longer. One thing I found with using custom build packs is it may take a while. For example, this one takes 7 minutes to deploy, so I'll definitely edit out the video and cut out that 7 minutes so you don't have to agonizingly wait for it. Oh, so while we're waiting for this to get set up, I can show you another thing. When you're signed into Bloomix and you go to the documentation, the documentation is going to be tailored to your account. So any specific commands that you have to run, they're going to show what you would have to type exactly, but only when you're logged in. So as we can see, the CF login one, the one that we did earlier, it automatically puts in my username and my organization in my default space for me. So documentation is really nice in that regards, is that if you're signed in, it'll help you make things easier. Sorry about that, guys. So the Ember command is run completed, or is completed. So you can see we have this new folder here and a complete Ember application. So the one fix we have to do is within package.json. I'll just copy that over. I'll full screen it here. As we can see, under dev dependencies, we'll see Ember CLI. We're going to change that to run Sorry about that. I needed to cough and didn't want to cough your ears off. So what this does here is it says get the most recent version of Ember CLI from GitHub. They've fixed the problem I was telling you about. So you can save it with Command or Control S or the top file menu here. And we can see up in the top left it went to an X rather than a star, letting us know that we've saved it. So once we do that, we have to go back. We have to cd into the folder that we just created. And then from here, we do npm install. And this will get us the most recent version of Ember CLI, which will make the authentication work again. And then after that npm install, we're going to run a few commands so we can get some Ember add-ons. There's simple auth that we're doing, and then Tori. So what this allows us to do is use authentication services like GitHub, Twitter, Facebook, Google, just to easily integrate in our application. So we'll just give npm a minute here to run, or to install the Ember client that we just set up. So this tutorial is not super long. There's a decent amount of code, but it's all copy and paste. So I'll overview it at the end, just so everything makes sense for everybody. But again, this is Ember. If you're not familiar with Ember, it's pretty translatable to Angular or whatever else you're used to. But I just wanted to show a cool application with an easy tutorial for you to follow afterwards. One thing that's really cool about the Nitrous.io interface is it does allow you to collaboratively edit code. So I could invite someone else that I was working on in the hackathon into this project, and then we can work on the same files at the same time. So if you're not fully comfortable with Git, then this is a pretty good way to team up and work on code together. Just an interesting thing to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to concatenate these just to make it a lot simpler for us. So how to concatenate commands on the terminal is just a double ampersand between them. And this says, once this command is finished and successfully finished, run the next one. So we'll just run this after we re-get the new version of Ember CLI. Okay, so that finally finished. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this Ideally, you would run them one after the other, but just to save some time, I concatenate them. They still run one after the other, but I don't have to copy and paste. Not really sure what's going on here, so I guess we will do them one at a time. Oh, looks like it was just being slow and copy and pasted a bunch of times. So we'll just let this run for a minute here. Sorry about that, I just wanted to clear my throat again. So that all finished, hopefully successfully. I'm pretty sure it did. So from here, we're going to do this next string of commands. I'm going to string them all together again, but essentially what this is doing is it's just setting up our Ember app, creating some routes, which is just basically the like the URLs that we're going to go to, and then a controller, which is the logic and where we're going to put the JavaScript logic for our application. So we'll paste that in. As we can see, it's not going super slow. So when it comes, it's going to ask you to overwrite the application.hps. Just say yes. Okay, so that's all done. We're not going to work with the command line for a while, so we'll just minimize that. So if we go back here, we need to add some mixins. So this first one is in routes application.js. So inside our app, routes application.js, we'll just replace it directly from GitHub or from that tutorial. Then the next one is in routes protected.js. So paste that in and save it. Then we're going to set up the login stuff. So in controllers, we can see right here app/controllers/login.js. So controllers. Again, we'll just replace it by pasting over it. And we'll go to the login route. Again, do what we've been doing, replacing it by pasting over. Update the templates. So the templates, kind of like Jade that we saw with the Node.js sample one, Ember uses handlebars, which I really like. I think it's a neat way of adding some logic into your web applications. So the first one we had was application. Just paste that over. The next one we have is login. Save. Final one we have is protected. Now from here we need to set up our application on GitHub. So go to this link, which takes you to your GitHub settings/applications. And then the top right, we can see register new application. So we'll name our application. When people log in with GitHub, this is what they'll see. So the homepage URL. So by default, we're just going to do localhost /4200. I haven't tried this on actually, you know what, just to save time, we're going to go straight to the final one. So the final one is going to be your app name.mybluemix.net. We're just going to replace your app name. We'll call this how to we'll put a 1 there just to make sure that doesn't fail. We don't have to spend 7 minutes again. So paste that in. So the first one is just a URL for when the pop-up comes up to where they can get more information. So usually you can leave it the same one. And the callback URL is like the website that they're going to go to once they're successfully logged in. So we'll click Register Application. And from here, we're in the application. We can see we have a client ID and a client secret. So what we want is the client ID. But we have to do something else first. So once you've registered on GitHub, we can go into config/environment.js. And we're going to set up the Tori provider. Tori handles the GitHub login for us. So it's not inside the app directory, it's inside config environment.js. And we can see this var end. So directly after that, so we can do it on line 22. We'll paste this in. And now we can see we need to input our client ID from GitHub, and then we'll set the redirect URI. We'll go back to here. Copy the client ID. Paste that in. Then we'll just copy the callback URL from GitHub. Make sure you have the http://, otherwise you'll get errors and it might be hard to debug why. Paste that in. Save the environment.js. Then from here, we're ready to deploy to Bloomix. So we'll run the cf push command, the name of our app. So this has to be the same as our redirect URI. So you may have to play with it a couple times if you don't pick a unique name. Trial and error, or make sure you pick a unique name. And then this -b stands for build pack. And then this is that custom build pack that we talked about earlier. So we'll just copy this command here. Then I'm just going to paste it into a new text editor just to make sure that I get the proper app name. So your app name will be the first half of the Bluemix URL. I'll recopy that and run this in the terminal. Okay, so now it's uploading. This build pack takes about 7 minutes. I'm hoping to find a better way before the hackathon. So I'll just cut out the video here and go and pick it back up where it left off, or once it's completed, sorry. All right, so we're back, everyone. So we can see now is once it goes through the build process, it looks pretty much the same as the Chatter app, but now we can see that the request state started instances 101 using a gig. So I'm not really sure what this build pack is doing, but it definitely wastes a decent amount of space. So if anyone finds a better method, please let me know. What I did was I just copied the URL. We're going there now. And it looks like we have some kind of error. So I'm not entirely sure what happened there. I'm sorry that the error happened live, but we can't always plan to make everything perfect. So if you want to run this tutorial locally, it should definitely work for you. I ran it a few days ago. So yeah, we'll do another hangout at 7 p.m. tonight. I'll post the link in the group, so hopefully you have time to check this out. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Have a good day, guys.